From the Corner Office is brought to you by Synovus Bank, championing business growth through trusted, relationship-driven banking throughout the Gulf Coast region. Andy Cagnetta has been brokering deals for businesses for some 30 years, becoming a go-to national expert in business sales, valuation, and negotiations. All the things that are key when an entrepreneur sets up the ever-important exit strategy. The Business Observer writes about all angles of exit strategies, from both the experts and the people doing the buying and selling. To read those stories and more, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com to sign up. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Andy Cagnetta, CEO of Transworld Business Advisors. Andy, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Mark. Appreciate it.
Excellent. So we're going to get into what Transworld does and business brokering and negotiating and kind of all these interesting things that you've done in your career. We're going to get into that. I want to get our audience to know you a little bit. You've certainly had some interesting sort of life moments, and we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to start with 3 rapid fire questions. What is the best meal that you cook or prepare?
Well, it'd have to be Italian. It'd have to be my sauce and meatballs. I've been cooking it for a long time. I used to own a pasta shop, and so that's my go-to meal.
I was hoping you would get into that because I saw that you own the pasta shop, and you also have this pretty cool charity event, which I think is probably related to you choosing pasta, right?
Yeah, when I came down here to South Florida, I was looking to help a local charity called LifeNet for Families. And in the process, I was a board member, and I said to everybody, hey, everybody's got to do something. I'm good at cooking dinner for a lot of people because I used to own a pasta shop. And so I said, I'm going to cook dinner for everybody here and so we did. And we had 50 people, raised a few $100. And over the years, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger until, we had 1,000 people a year approximately coming to the event and raised over $300,000 a year. So we've done it for 22 times so far, looking for a new home for it actually right now. So.
All right. Well, it's probably a good problem to have as you get bigger and raise more money, right? So pasta is the meal. Okay. Second question. If you could only keep 3 apps on your phone and nothing else, what are the 3 apps that you would keep?
Yeah, I think I would keep, of course, Outlook. I think I need to be able to email everybody back and forth. I really like Waze. It gets me around, always looking to try to beat the traffic kind of thing. And I think beyond that, I guess I'd have to be entertained. Maybe I'd leave my TikTok. So sad to say.
Sheepishly, TikTok. Oh, it's entertaining though. And Waze, yeah. I mean, you're on the, and we're going to get into that. You're on the east coast of Florida. So Waze is certainly important as you navigate the traffic of I-95 and all those other roads around there.
Yeah, it's always a choice. Turnpike or 95. Let's pick one today.
Yeah. All right. So last rapid fire question. What would be your dream outside of what you're doing right now? I should say, what is your dream job?
Probably playing lead guitar in a band. I mean, I think that was always my dream job that I someday play out and tour. And so that's my dream job.
Do you play guitar?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're halfway there.
Yeah. And we play in bands. We've done some charity events, again, very involved in charity. So we've done some corporate bands where we have a bunch of people that are talented, more talented than me. That's one of my secrets to success. Just surround yourself with people who are more talented, and it makes you sound good. So,
well, that's we're going to get into leadership. It's a good segue because that could be one of the tips you have, right? Surround yourself with good people. But before we get into leadership, Andy, tell us about Transworld Business Advisors, what your niche is in the marketplace, and what you guys do.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. We sell other people's businesses. So much like a realtor sells a house, we meet with sellers who want to sell their businesses and retire, and we package them up for sale, and we confidentially go out to the marketplace and find them the right buyer. That's a very simplified version of events, but yeah, that's what we do.
And you're based in the Fort Lauderdale area, but you have work statewide?
Yeah, so we've been here for 40 years here in South Florida. It started in Fort Lauderdale. We built it to 10 offices here in Florida, which we're still own and operate. I own and operate. And then 15 years ago we franchised, and so now we have I'm 50-50 partners in the franchise, and with us and United Franchise Group, we've grown that to 250 offices around the world. So it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So, all right, we're going to get into, your career a little bit. How did you get into this line of work? How did you get to South Florida and kind of start doing this work?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to meet my wife up in Hartford, Connecticut while I had that pasta shop. And I wound up selling that small business. We bought and sold it. And I had started a few small businesses. And my wife grew up here in South Florida. She's a Hollywood native. And so when we got married, she's like, hey, I want to move home. And after we had one winter up in New York where it snowed 22 times. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably time to
Enough of this.
Enough of this. So we moved to South Florida. I started to look to buy a business. Did not know what a business broker was. And when I got here to South Florida, there was lots of them, and met with several of them and wound up at Transworld one day. And Transworld was owned by a very nice couple, Don and Bonnie Parrish, and they invited me to join the team. So in 95, I joined Transworld as a salesperson, and I really loved the industry and did well. And in 97, I bought the company.
One of the things about, speaking about business brokerage, it comes up often on this podcast, whether we're talking to bankers, commercial real estate advisors, brokers, that in your line of work, you get an insight into other leaders, right? Because you're working with other business. It's this window into whether, whatever kind of company it is, right? It's a restaurant company, it's a pasta shop, it's a manufacturing business. What have you learned from your clients over the years about leadership? What stands out in your mind about good leadership that you've learned?
Well, it's number one is the people, right? It's the people that you have surrounding, and you have to take care of them. The people that have been very successful in business have long-term employees, and they seem to do a really good job of keeping people in their business. And so they do that through, rewarding them correctly. And then the other thing is, I think all the business owners that I've met that have been super successful have the ability to do the job themselves, or they're not afraid to get their hands dirty. They have grit. I think I saw that on some other podcasts where somebody said, what's the common denominator of people who are successful? And it's grit,
Yeah, so it's coming up the idea that you're not just giving the orders, that you're the person willing to sweep the floors or, do the grunt work or the gritty work.
Yeah, I've always been, I've always tried to stay humble, and and I work very closely with everybody here at Transworld, and I think that's been very good for me. And the other thing I always tell people is I realize people are human. I have a high tolerance for pain with people. I kiddingly say, but people have bad days. People make mistakes. And you have to be able to look beyond that, and you have to have to help understand where they are. And sometimes you have to meet people where they are. There are people that not everybody wants to be an owner of business. Not everybody wants to make a lot of money. Some people want to be creative. Some people want to do this. Meet people where they are.
Right. That's an interesting point, because it's come up in my work as I supervise our team of reporters at the Business Observer, what your pain point is. How have you as a leader kind of balanced that line between, because you have to have results, right? You're a result-oriented business.
Sure.
How do you balance between what your pain point is and what the results is as a leader to get to where you need to be? Yeah,
as far as, putting people in the right places, it's what I've learned, and maybe too slowly, like one of the quote unquote my regrets maybe over time, is that I didn't realize when people would have been better off doing something else for themselves, right? I should have got them out of that job, and even firing people and realizing they're going to find a better place. They're going to go do something and be more happy and happier. So I think I learned that a little bit later. So I'm a little bit more apt to kind of move people along, saying, hey, listen, this is not for you. We're going to take care of you, but you really should do something else. But at the same point, if people are willing to improve, if people are willing to be dedicated, if they're a little bit slower than somebody else, and that's the hard thing as a boss, right? You want to be able, like, I could do that, 5 times faster. It's like, no, you got to let your people do things. You got to let them make the mistakes. You got to give them autonomy. You have to give them power. Otherwise, they're not going to be fulfilled.
Yeah, it reminds. I had a great boss, a mentor of mine, more than 20 years ago now, who said she was only going to stop me if it was a train wreck, right? Like, she was going to let me do it unless it was the train wreck. And there was 1 or 2 train wrecks where she had to come in and stop it.
Yeah, but that's a great. I love that. I'm going to use that from that. Yeah,
excellent.
It's a good one.
So, it sounds like maybe some of this has come as you've worked, as you've grown in your career. Who and what are your influences? Is it books? Is it people in your life, and who are they that have influenced your leadership?
Yeah, I mean, of course, books are always, watching reading books. I love Chris Voss as far as negotiating is concerned. I think he does a really good job of kind of a win-win solution to negotiating. And there's a lot of negotiating books out there, Harvey Cohen, Stuart Diamond, Caress. I mean, there's a lot of those. I do look to other business owners that have been very successful in the past. I got to get to know Wayne Huizinga a little bit, and Mike Jackson, and watching leaders like Keith Cobb, local leaders. And my grandfather was a hardworking guy, union guy, worked the night shift, and he was a great example to us of, when I was growing up, of just someone that was able to work with a diversity of people, and really embrace them and make them part of their family. So I think that was a big influence on me. And my dad too is a good leader in his office as well. Very people-oriented people. And I think that's, kind of key.
Wayne and Mike, obviously big South Florida business guys. What stands out that you learned from them, watching them, or just getting to know their sort of vision and style?
I think Mike is very practical. Talk about someone who had humble beginnings, working literally in, as a mechanic at Mercedes-Benz and working his way up to the top spot. And again, he was very people-focused. I think he empowered people around him. Wayne was a big visionary guy. Nothing was too small for him to envision. And he had that grit too, right? He was driving the garbage truck in the morning and then going out and signing up clients at night. And he had a great story. And both of those guys are very philanthropic. And I think that's a very big signal. Wayne, Terry Stiles. I'm just thinking of some of the other people in town that have been super giving back to the community. I think that made a big impression on me early on, that connections in the community are so valuable. So.
Yeah, I remember I've read about, never met Wayne, but I've read several books on him and his business acumen. And it brings me to another question. How important is storytelling in leadership for you?
I think it's, I'm a marketing guy. I graduated school in marketing, and talk about another great book is the storytelling. I just lost it for a second, but telling your brand story is very important. People want to relate to people, and telling a story about how somebody sold their business and how we got it done. And that's what I relied upon when I first got here. I was a young man looking at 65-year-olds telling them, I can sell your business. And the reason I could is because I did it myself. And so I think, storytelling is very important.
Yeah. Going back to leadership and sort of lessons you learned, what's something that you use now that you wish you knew earlier, right? Something in this stage of your career, I wish I had done that 20 years ago or 15 years ago, that stands out in your mind?
I'm not sure I have too many regrets. I think I would have, trying to think, one of the things that I kind of regret is I should have invested in some more real estate. Like, I should have bought the locations I did that in Jacksonville, in 2006, almost 20 years ago. And we just about have that property paid off. I should have did that across all my offices. So I probably should have been a little bit more aggressive. We've acquired some business brokers along the way, and we did that more forcefully later on, and we should have done that much earlier.
Well, with all the entities you have, if you guys were buying real estate, we'd be on a different podcast now, talking
maybe
on different stages of your life. But you're obviously very successful. Talk about in terms of your organization when you're promoting leaders or even hiring people that you might envision as a leader someday. What do you look for, Andy? What stands out to you when you're looking to promote other leaders?
I think empathy is a big thing for me. I think people have to have the ability to, again, have some sort of tolerance and have a cool head and be supportive of the people under them. I don't like letting people go. I think that's a last resort. I really believe in, trying to get people to, did we give them every opportunity? Did we train them properly? Is there something going on in their life where they're miserable? Is there, mental health issues? I've struggled with all those things in my life. And I think having empathy as a leader is so important.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to negotiation, like you've talked a lot about that. I know it could be another podcast entirely, but what are sort of, give us 2 or 3 tips about being a good negotiator. What stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to know what you want, right? So first thing you have to realize is everything's not about money and it's not about you, right? So when you're negotiating with someone, you're trying to figure out what they want. And if that fits your goals, then that's the best way to approach it. And, there's always some tips. If someone's being like really aggressive with you, you could always flinch and you go, and if people are empathetic at all, it kind of stops them in their tracks. So the flinch has worked very well for me over time. I've used it before. There's things like the extreme anger when, somebody gives you, it's like, well, how much does that cost? And I'm like, well, when we sell a business, we take 50% at the closing, and people are like, what? And it's like, but it breaks the ice. And the other thing, another Chris Voss thing that I like is get a no early. Like, give them the power to say no. There's nothing more annoying than being in a salesman-y kind of all of a sudden, when you're being sold, and it really makes you feel uncomfortable, almost makes your skin crawl, right? But if you're able to give them the power, and one of the ways to give them power is give them a no. It's like, hey, you wouldn't give me 100% of your business right now, right? And they're like, no. And it's like, of course not. Or, you wouldn't sell your business for $1, would you? And it's like, no. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to try to find the best way. So I've empowered them by giving them the no power.
Yeah, I was just going to say, give them that control. And this comes up not in every episode, but a lot about the similarities between leadership and parenting, right? And I have a 17-year-old, and when he was younger, we learned, if you give him that little ounce that he thinks he has a say in the decision, it goes a long way, even though he doesn't really have a say when he's 6 years old about where we're eating dinner. We're just going where we say we're going, but he's got that little feeling of control.
I told my daughter that when she was growing up. She was a freshman in high school, and I said, you have 2 ways for the next 4 years. You could have a really good time. We could trust you. You could do, and you could be an adult, or I could have my nose over your shoulder every single day, making sure you're doing your homework, making sure that you're getting through it. And you're going to have fights with your mom, and I'm going to have to step in. So you choose which experience you want. It's your choice.
Yes. So what'd she choose?
She chose the right one. So
yeah.
It was good. I mean, not that there weren't issues along the way.
Our son's the same way. As successful as our 17-year-old is, I still remind people he's still a teenager. So
of course, their brains aren't fully formed.
They're not fully developed. Say it a lot. No. Andy, big picture question: what kind of legacy do you want to leave as a leader? What do you want people to say about you as a business leader and person?
Yeah, I always told people, it's like, if somebody says, "Oh, remember Andy Cagnetta?" He's like, "Yeah, he was a good guy." That's like, that's my goal, right? If they just say, "Wow, he was a good guy." I one of the things I'm proudest of, or one of the things that makes me feel the best, is when people come up to me and say, "I changed their lives." And whether that was we sold their business and they got to spend more time with their husband, which somebody once did at the husband's funeral. She came running up to me and she goes, "You gave me 2 years. Thank you so much." And then, and then somebody who, I sold the business to has turned it into two brothers that I know that turned it into a multi-million-dollar huge enterprise, and they're doing extremely well right now. Or somebody that joined Transworld. One of my guys is 70 something years old, and he thought he was retired. He thought he had to sit home and watch Jeopardy all day or something. And he's like, last year he sold, I think close to 10 businesses. And he's like, "I've never felt better about my career in my life. And I'm 70 something years old. Thank you."
Amazing.
So, those things are, make you feel good.
Yeah. One last question, bringing it back to the business as we wind down 2025. Andy, what are you looking at? What sort of trending? What are you excited about for Transworld Business Advisors going into the next year?
Yeah, well, the baby boomers are still supposed to retire, and I don't think they have.
It's the silver tsunami, right?
It's yes, and it's here. But it's not a tsunami, it's not a huge wave all at once, which is probably good for the marketplace. But some more sellers could come forward, which would be helpful because it's still a seller's market and the buyers are still out there. So I feel good that there's still tons of capital out there. Florida is a great place to build a business, as well as the United States. Would love to see more certainty in trade and tariffs and interest rates, but I think we're getting there. Those things should settle down over the next few years. So I'm very bullish on, the economy right now.
Excellent. Andy Cagnetta, CEO of Transworld Business Advisors. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.